In terms of the mindset of the Gazans you met, has that changed at all from 30 years ago?
You know, I think that's a broader question, Gotti, and it gets into some interesting answers. And when you say as the attitude of the Gazans change, I think the real question is the attitude of the Palestinians change. And what's the attitude? Did I see any change in the attitude on the West Bank, for example, as well? So I think the West Bank is really the future of Israeli-Palestinian relations, and where that any kind of a arrangement or any kind of a future is going to be told is on the West Bank. Of course, Gaza too. But I spent a day in Bethlehem as well, and I went with a young teacher who took me around just to see Bethlehem, and he took me to the home of a friend of his who has five sons, three of which are in Israeli custody now, and he's not even sure why. He thinks they were because of extremist Facebook postings, um, and he said that's typical here on the West Bank. Many of us have young male relatives that have been arrested, and but I will say this. I will say this about the Palestinian outlook. That while I was sitting in this home, let me add, I've never experienced hospitality like I have in the West Bank. I had never heard the word welcome so much when I, as a Western reporter from America, came in. And even as they asked me things like, why is your government supplying bombs to the Israelis to kill babies, as they said, in Gaza, even as they asked that of me, they showed great hospitality uh, toward me. And so they were very welcoming. And, they showed some interesting sides of Palestinian culture. I noticed at one point, despite a lot of deprivation and poverty there, that there's no homeless people in West Bank. And it kind of took me aback it's not something you necessarily notice, but at one point I kind of noticed and asked Omar, my friend who took me around, where are the homeless people? I said, we don't have homeless people. We look after each other. That's our culture.
Mm.
And so there's some very impressive parts of that, but there's another part of the culture that I have to be honest about that I found back in 1991 and I found still today. And that's at one point in this home where we were being served lunch and welcomed. He pointed to an older man, a photo on the wall, and said, that's our patriarch. He's in his 90s. And he owned land in Israel. And all we want to do is get back to that land in Israel. And when I was in Gaza and I talked to young kids, I said, where are you from? And they said, oh, we're from Beersheba. And I said, wait, that's in Israel, isn't it? And I said, yeah, but that's our home. And I said, well, what's it like? And they said, oh, it's so beautiful with orange groves and green trees. And I said, oh, when were you there? They said, oh, we've never been there, but that's our home. And so, and there is this attitude that I think is problematic. I'll say that even though this gets into a political debate that we could get into in terms of rights of Palestinians versus Israelis, 3 generations later, I do find that both in 1991 and 2024, there's a tendency in the Palestinian and among many Palestinians to look backwards towards where their lives were back in even 1947 instead of looking forward towards building.